Hey, movie fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Uncharted Media Podcast. This is episode 109. We took last week off because there was nothing to talk about at all, really. There was like two discussion topics, and that's about it, and we were really reaching. Plus, I was just super busy with work. And then the movie gods were just like, here is everything. We have so much to talk about. Most of it good. Some things I'm the definition of on the fence, and I might be a party pooper about. But Michael, how are you doing tonight?
Personally, I felt better. Personally, I'm a little under the weather, but don't worry, I'm not contagious. No, we're doing well. This has been a very strange week in the movie news realm. I am very much like you, conflicted on many fronts, so I can't wait to get started.
But before we get into anything, Michael, you watching or reading anything good this week?
I'm continuing back through my very beloved series, The West Wing, before it leaves Netflix here on December 24th.
Where's it going, Michael?
Yes. Hold that thought. But I have the next movie night planned with my father. So this is going to be a preview. I've never seen A Few Good Men, and I know it's iconic. So my dad liked The Hunt for Red October, which he has quoted his entire life. We were going to sit down and watch that. I don't know if it's going to be this week, but it's going to be before Christmas. So I'm really looking forward to giving my retro review. We're on this 80s and 90s film kick, which is, it's insane to say those are 30 and 40 years ago now. So they are kind of like classic cinema.
A Few Good Men, for those that don't know, that's the one where Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson are on the side of the Burj Khalifa, basically accusing each other of not being good men, while all the stunts were done practically. And Michael's
yeah, I don't know a whole lot about this film. So,
okay, no.
Was that a joke?
Michael, this movie is a drama, Michael.
Oh, okay.
No one is hanging on the side of buildings. Not this time.
I know it has something to do with the courtroom. I'm like, all the stunts. Like, what was a bomb go off or something? Like, I'm trying to figure this out.
It was a bad Mission Impossible joke. I've been watching. Heather and I have been revisiting the Lord of the Rings trilogy because I got the extended edition 4Ks. So, we are splitting it up because by the time I get home, it's like 6 or 6:30, and Heather's got to be up early. So We're not doing it as 3 individual movies as much as I would like to. We're doing it. We're watching a disc a night. So since it's the extended edition, whenever the disc is done, that's our movie. So instead of 3 really long movies, it's 6 normally length movies. Looks excellent. It's just wonderful.
That's the question. So, is there a massive difference between the 4K and the actual just regular Blu-ray?
I would say, but also I have the DVD, the special edition, hard case DVDs. So it's a big step up for me. My dad has a Blu-rays, and I thought the Blu-rays looked fine, but not as good as they could be. It's not like the crispest thing you'll ever see out there, Justice League or Avengers. But it's still, for 2001 to 2003, it looks phenomenal. Textures, just skin tones look correct. Just excellent. Looks fantastic.
So where did you pick this up, and how much of the rest, regular consumers, including myself, expect to find it and pay for it?
I did a little bit of bouncing around first because I was trying to find it at Best Buy because Best Buy has this special edition Steelbook, which good luck finding that. And then I tried to find it at Walmart, and Walmart had completely no stock of it whatsoever. But then again, I checked the day it came out, and Walmart is typically bad about stocking their movies the day they come out. And I eventually found it at Target. So I found it at Target after a while. I think it was $90, somewhere around the ballpark. But I don't believe it has the special features. They are coming out with one in a few months that has the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, both extended editions, with all the special features in one big set. But I'm going, I already have the special features on the DVD copy, so I can always just go back and watch those. Something we might talk about for our main discussion is I would like HBO Max to have the special features for some of their movies like Disney Plus does. I don't need all of them, but some behind the scenes I think would be a cool feature to add for the streaming service in the future. But any excuse to revisit Lord of the Rings is good in my book.
Absolutely. Considering, I mean, I read the interview with Peter Jackson giving his detail on these and what they had to do, and considering the real principal photography began in '99, for crying out loud, to be able to go back and actually, improve upon these, not just the effects, but like you said, the lighting on some of these scenes, the way that a director can envision. Much like James Cameron waits for technology, now we can use technology to go back and say, if I had another shot at maybe another 10 minutes in the editing room with this is what I would do. So it's actually really encouraging to have seen that interview, but then hear your feedback, because I didn't even know this was coming, because I bought the Blu-rays just last year, but now I'm thinking, well, like you just said, not that I need an excuse to go back and watch them, but 4K, oh boy, and I have a nice OLED TV that's a 4K HDR set, so I'm like, oh man, like I can't imagine what some of those night scenes would look like, especially even with The Hobbit. I mean, I know The Hobbit's down, like most universally agreed, it's a downgrade in quality, but still some of the effects I can imagine look pretty good, or will look pretty good, rather.
Yeah, I keep pretty close tabs on new releases, especially for remasters stuff. Like Lord of the Rings was the one that I was like, I need this to be remastered because it's been in the works forever. I still have a couple others, and I'm like, I need somebody to do this. Like, I'm still waiting, and I think might come out next year. A 4K remaster of Indiana Jones. But also, still bothers me to this day that there is no 4K version of The Shawshank Redemption. I would love to see Shawshank in 4K. But before we get into our main topics, because boy, we've got some big ones, I've also been reading something. I've just finished reading a quick little mini story, a Superman Elseworld story, if you will, called Superman's Secret Identity. So basically, it's about this kid named Clark Kent, who his parents name him that more or less because they kind of hate him, because they're Kents that live in Kansas, and they're just like, wouldn't it be funny if your name was Clark Kent because you're from Kansas and you're a Kent? And so this kid like kind of gets picked on, and everyone kind of expects him to be Superman, even though he's a regular kid. So he's like us of that. In his world and his planet, Superman is a fictitious character, except one day he magically gets the powers of Superman. And so it's basically the Superman story, except without any Kryptonian back lore or any major villains like Brainiac, Lex Luthor. It's like, what if the Superman actually existed in our real world and was a person trying their best to do the right thing while also hiding themselves from the government? And it's a very human story. I was like, this is really, really good. And so it's not just like I have these powers for a year. It more or less follows this dude's life in its entirety, of when he gets his powers when he's a kid all the way up to when he's basically a grandpa, and spoiler alert, gets to fly with his grandkids because they inherit his powers too. And he's like, I'm not as strong as I used to be, and I can't fly as fast as my kids, but I've had a good run. Like, it's this concept of like, even though you're a superhero, you still age like everybody else, because you're, at the end of the day, a human that somehow, it's never explained, he just gets his powers. It's a really fun and unique Elseworlds type Superman story that I was like, this was surprisingly emotional, and just, it's very human. And it was just like, oh, wow, this is something special. It's not talked about as much, but if you can find it, check out Superman's Secret Identity. It was so good. I was very surprised.
Is this part of like DC Comics, like canon now?
No, it's probably an Elseworld. I would consider it an Elseworld story.
Okay.
But
right. Sorry for the elementary people among us, speaking for them. Okay. That is very curious. They actually give an explanation of as to how he gets them. Does it just like,
nope,
or does he just wake up one day?
He just wakes up one day and can fly.
Oh, okay. Now that would be something.
Now, let us get to our main discussion, our main news topics before we get into our discussion. So, something happened today as we're recording this. I was like, okay, we're set on news topics. There's nothing else that really is going to be that big, I don't think. Oh, okay, cue the Shrek meme. Somebody wants, as the news just burst through the door, not even caring about me having all my graphics done and everything else. Because we know Spider-Man 3 is currently filming, whatever that is. I'm putting it on record right now. By the time we come back for next week's podcast episode, we will be discussing the Spider-Man title. I feel like that will drop sometime this week, possibly December 10th. December 10th is going to be a big news day. Keep that circled, folks. But they're currently filming Spider-Man 3, and it seems like there might be some details that are too big that might have been eventually leaked out, so they wanted to get out in front of this now, as Alfred Molina, Doc Ock himself, is reprising his role from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 in the new Spider-Man movie as Doc Ock. I am the definition of conflicted on this, because the more and more I'm hearing about this movie, I'm still so on the fence of, I loved the Spider-Verse animated movie, and I would love to see an Into the Spider-Verse type live action movie, but I still think it's way too soon in this, because we are still trying to get Tom Holland's Spider-Man out of the Iron Man shadow. And I feel like we were starting to make some headway with that with Far From Home, which admittedly is definitely lower tier Spider-Man for me. I was kind of disappointed with it and was kind of hoping this one would be a bounce back. I don't think this will be a bad movie, but I am starting to get worried that this thing is going to be kind of bloated, because we've got Jamie Foxx returning as Electro. Now we've got Alfred Molina coming back as Doc Ock. And I'm not going to state it here. I won't say it, and like some other people are saying, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are not confirmed at this time. There's an article going out by Collider saying that they have been confirmed to be returning. The wording in it, it's pretty evident that they have not confirmed it yet, but it's looking more and more likely. I believe they will return, but it's not confirmed yet that they are returning. So add them into the mix. This is going to be a very, very crowded movie. Now, Marvel, on the flip side, has had very crowded movies before, and they've made it work. Infinity War has a bunch of characters, and it still works very cohesively. Civil War, as much as Josh hates it, is very cohesive for the number of people involved in it. Endgame has a ton of people involved. Right. So it could be just a large-scale Spider-Man story with a lot of people, and Marvel balances things out very, very well. On the flip side of it, though, and here's where my negativity kind of sleeps in, and I try to be positive, but it is, but it isn't a Marvel property. This is still a Sony property, and Sony is the definition of hit or miss when it comes to their Spider-Man franchise. It's always that darned third movie. Whenever we get to that, they're just like, dump everything in the pot. I should be excited about this. I should be, because Doc Ock is my favorite Spider-Man villain of all time. In the comics and in the movies, Alfred Molina I thought was fantastic, almost perfect. Any role, there's room for improvement. If he does join in this movie, there's certain checklists that I'll talk about in a little bit of things I would like to see slightly tweaked or improved, and they're just minor cosmetic changes. I should be excited, but I'm still so hesitant, because this doesn't feel, as much as people are just like, oh, this sounds awesome, this doesn't feel like the traditional Marvel movie, in a sense of, it doesn't feel like it's been set up in the previous movies. It just feels like, and I have a theory, and I'll break out the tinfoil hat in a little bit, I feel like there's a reason why this doesn't feel particularly set up. It might not be what y'all want to hear, but it's just my theory. But before we get into that, Michael, you see Doc Ock's Alfred Molina's coming back. Thoughts?
Well, I think it's cool. It's a little nutty. However, maybe to add a little bit of encouragement, that let's just posit this. Let me be as clear as possible. Let's make an assumption. Let's go all the way and say that Alfred Molina 100% is, like obviously that's the story, and Jamie Foxx, but then we're also going to rope in Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, okay? Well, let's say that it's just going to be this big melting pot. It's going to seem into the Spider-Verse-esque, okay? Well, why would we assume that that's the entire story and not set up either at the very end of the movie as a tease or the infamous post-credit scenes? Like, why are we jumping to the conclusion that this would be a main title and a main part of the story, instead of exactly like you are describing, an actual Spider-Man movie that is independent, that deals with the repercussions of JJ's admission on live TV, and that deals with him and Mary Jane and him being a hero and coming into his own. And then as a fun tease for the future, you get this, whatever this is. I guess for me that's how it seems, but I don't know what you tease something there with what your theory. So I don't know if that goes with your theory, but for me, I don't really want to jump to the assumption that that's exactly what this is going to be. It's just they're going to try to capitalize on why Into the Spider-Verse was so popular. Now we're going to try to capture lightning in a bottle in live action. Like that does feel like a Sony move. That does not feel like a Marvel move. And maybe I guess I'm really curious, maybe you're talking about a potential rift there in sourcing material and content and rights.
Yep.
And so I don't know. I don't want to assume that it's going to be a part of the main story.
So now I have my tinfoil hat on, and it's
literally
to be the bearer of what I think might be some bad news. Well, it is bad news. I'm saying it might be because it's not confirmed. It's just my theory, my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory here. I think this is the movie and the way that they set up Tom Holland's Spider-Man's exit from the MCU. Because remember at this time last year, Disney and Sony had that very public divorce of Spider-Man. And they said, okay, we came to an agreement. There's going to be one more Spider-Man movie and one more Marvel movie that Spider-Man appears in. And we more or less have kind of gotten some confirmation that Spider-Man will be in the Multiverse of Madness. So maybe those stories are somehow connected. And if this feels rushed, maybe it's because this was not part of Kevin Feige's plan and he's had to turn a quick corner to cleanly wrap up a way for Spider-Man to exit the MCU. Now, I don't want this to be true, but we've heard no confirmation from either Marvel or Sony that they are renewing their deal once these new movies are done. I got more of the impression of we're going to find a way for there to be a timely exit for Spider-Man in a way that makes sense. I don't want this to be the case because I want the MCU to continue to make good Tom Holland movies and continue to evolve the character and hopefully maybe someday get him to be the version of the Spider-Man that we know and love. I just keep getting this, as so long as Spider-Man belongs to somebody else for the film perspective, I will always be worried that he'll be gone from the MCU. And I can't get that sneaking suspicion out of my head that the reason that this feels so rushed for a movie is, one, Into the Spider-Verse did so well, so Sony's going, well, we got to do that for live action form because that's very Sony and they have a tendency to do that. And two, now that they're starting to do their other Spider-Man projects, they really want Spider-Man back. And after that verbal sparring between the two, I think a lot of people were mad, and myself included, that the split initially happened. I know they came back to the table and eventually worked something out. A lot of people were mad because it would automatically just yank Spider-Man out of the MCU with no rhyme or reason. This movie would theoretically give Kevin Feige a way to explain why Spider-Man would be all of a sudden gone. Then, a few years down the road, if something happens and the rights to Spider-Man do come back to Marvel, then they can go back to that multiverse and bring him back in. I don't want this to be true. But knowing how Sony and Disney have been on shaky ground at times, that's just my theory, and I want to be wrong here. Michael, convince me that I'm wrong here.
I was like, okay, so how do you clean up the A-bomb that you just dropped in this theory? Okay, so possible explanation. As people know, this is an industry, they want to maximize return on their investment. Okay? They want to make a profit. They want to make as much money as possible. And you can do that by garnishing up hype and, stirring up emotion and passion. So do I think at the end of the day that Marvel and Disney, or excuse me, Marvel and Sony came together and were ever going to not allow Tom Holland to be in the MCU. No, by no means, because there's too much money in it. For me, that was a public divorce. It was public. It got people's attention. They talked about it. It was a topic of conversation for weeks. That's all. I mean, even if it's quote unquote bad press, people were talking about it. People knew about it. It drives people out to theaters to see said content because you don't know if it's going to be the last one. You want to be a part of history, right? So for me, that was all noise. Like, of course, they're not going to end it that way. One, that would be a PR disaster. And then the main thing, because it would be such a stupid decision financially. Look how much money these films make. And look, how much did Homecoming and Far From Home make versus Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2? Do you know the box office returns there?
Far From Home, I know for a fact, made $1 billion. But I attribute that to being the first movie after Endgame, more so than the quality of the movie. It's not a bad movie. I just think the most successful movies in the MCU are either Avengers movies or movies that come right after an Avengers movie. Iron Man 3, for prime example, made $1 billion. Captain Marvel made close to $1 billion, or made $1 billion because people thought that was a direct lead-in to Avengers Endgame, which it turned out not to be. So that was a big old dick move there.
At the end of the day, they're making money.
Yes.
And so the fact that they have the character and that was going to be the movie, it would be a terrible decision for them to just ice the deal. But it would have been a terrible decision. So,
but see, here's where I disagree.
I'm not too worried about it.
I think Sony has had a taste of success because Venom made over $800 million. So they're going, well, we did one without you, so thanks.
So right.
Sony, they've had a little bit of taste of, oh, we did it without you. We're fine. You fix it for us. We'll go on our merry way. Like, Spider-Man was broken, basically, after Amazing Spider-Man 2, and Marvel had to fix it. Now that he's fixed again, I believe Sony will be like, well, thanks, we'll take our toy back, like a kid who just broke their toy and brought it to their dad. Now that the dad's fixed it, they run off and go and break it again, probably, because they've assumed, okay, we know what we're doing now, as you jam-pack a whole bunch of people into this. Again, I want to be excited. I love Doc Ock. I love Alfred Molina's Doc Ock. I said there's some things I would like to change. I'm a purist. I know that. We know we're getting Jamie Foxx's Electro. I want him in the green and yellow. I don't need the starfish mask, but I want him in the green and yellow.
Right.
And Doc Ock, if he's coming back, I want him with the goggles and the bowl cut. I don't need him in full green spandex, but it'd be nice. But I want him with the goggles and the bowl cut. Now, it's not a full tinfoil hat theory, but quasi. So I'm not going to put the hat back on for this. But I think it's interesting that other than Green Goblin, even then that's kind of not the same for a technicality, we've almost never had duplicate Spider-Man villains. And one, that's because Spider-Man has such a great rogues gallery. I think it'd be interesting if these villains like Alfred Molina's Doc Ock or Jamie Foxx's Electro are in Tom Holland's world. But what I'm actually going to propose is they're the villains of each other's versions of Spider-Man. So Alfred Molina's Doc Ock is the Doc Ock from Andrew Garfield's universe, and Jamie Foxx's Electro is Electro from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy.
Oh, okay.
Because we never saw Electro in that original trilogy.
No, that's right.
We never saw or had any reference to Doc Ock in Amazing Spider-Man. So everyone kind of assumes that they may already exist in the Tom Holland world. Maybe there's a more clever way to do that. I think these guys are not playing the original versions. Doc Ock drowned and Electro evaporated into electricity. Granted, energy can never be destroyed, created nor destroyed. There's your science lesson for the day. So he's probably still out there somewhere. It could probably travel across dimensions. But these are clearly going to be different versions of these characters. I just think it'd be interesting if they come opposite of what we would expect.
That was like the one question I had is like, if they are coming back at these capacities, what roles are they actually doing? And your explanation just there makes complete sense. a complete sense. I still need to ask you though. I mean, taking your point there, setting it aside, does this have to mean though that the A plot of the film revolves around this multiverse, or can it just be a tease at the end of the movie?
I think at this point, if it was just Jamie Foxx's Electro or just Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, then maybe, just maybe, they would be an end credit. But then again, we didn't know the J.K. Simmons thing in Far From Home until the movie came out. So they would have done a much better job of keeping that secret if that was an end credits. So I think it has to be something multiverse related. I do think we're going to get Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire at some point. But I said earlier, and I say it again, it has, at the time of recording this, it has not officially been stated by any reputable sources. Collider is stating it, but if you read the article, their wording makes it kind of come across more as an assumption than actual confirmation. I think we will get that news sometime soon, and I'm marking it now. By this time next week, we will have a title for Spider-Man, as well as some other news. Next week will be very jam-packed, I promise you that.
So, is the order of release, does the Multiverse of Madness come out before this third Spider-Man film?
It is the movie that immediately follows it.
Oh boy.
So I'm sure they're guaranteed. But also, again, remember, in the Multiverse of Madness is directed by former Spider-Man director Sam Raimi.
Stop. Okay, stop. Let's move on. Like, I don't want to think. Don't even. No, I'm done. I'm not gonna think about this, about him leaving. I don't want to talk. No, I'm done.
Do you want to talk about the lovely Hailee Steinfeld instead?
Sure. Why not?
Hailee Steinfeld's great. As it's been like the worst kept secret in Marvel history that Hailee Steinfeld is probably going to be in the Hawkeye series as the character Kate Bishop. Well, now we can confirm that, as Hailee Steinfeld is confirmed for the Hawkeye series as the character Kate Bishop. It's nice to have this confirmation. It really is, just because it's, like I said, been the worst kept secret in Marvel that she's been approached. Normally we wouldn't talk about set leaks, so if they hadn't made an official confirmation, wouldn't have said anything. But now that Hawkeye is filming, we've seen her on set, but also they finally came out and said, yes, she is going to be in the Hawkeye series. Florence Pugh, who is in the Black Widow movie, and presumably taking over the role of Black Widow from Natasha, will also be in the Hawkeye series. And then The Conjuring's Vera Farmiga will be playing Kate Bishop's mom. I'm looking at this cast. I'm all for it. Hawkeye is not my favorite MCU character, but he's not my least favorite by any stretch of the imagination. I'm looking forward to this for two reasons. One, there's some stuff that we've seen in the set photos that just make me excited. I'm not going to talk about them here because I don't like to talk about set photos because those aren't officially released stuff. When they come out with official information about stuff regarding Hawkeye himself, that kind of gets me excited because it's going back to the more comic style. But two, it comes down to Hailee Steinfeld. I'm such a huge fan of hers because more often than not, when she's attached to something, it means quality. Like, whoever her agent is picks, like, excellent stuff for this girl to be in. Into the Spider-Verse, when she was Spider-Gwen. Bumblebee. True Grit. Come on. And even though I didn't particularly enjoy the movie, I thought she was one of the best things about Ender's Game. I love almost everything that she's in. She picks excellent things to be in. She's got great discernment, I guess, in terms of projects to attach herself to. Like, she rarely, if ever, is anything bad. Plus, she's excellent in whatever I see her in, and I really enjoy seeing her in more stuff. So, welcome to the MCU, officially, finally, Hailee Steinfeld. What do you think about her casting, Michael?
Yeah, never a mistake to add talented people. And I'm just curious of the role here because, like, yeah, I was a huge fan of her. And a fan of her singing talents as well. The thing is, what's her role going to be? I mean, is she trying to play his daughter or a relative?
Kate Bishop is more or less the person that Hawkeye trains to be the next Hawkeye. It's not.
Excuse me.
It's not his. It's not his daughter. Think of it more like Speedy for the Green Arrow type, or Robin to Batman, kind of.
Okay.
Like, it's more of a mentor-mentee type of role.
So the fact that she's younger, and like Hawkeye's married and everything, like I'm just curious though, like how does he meet her then?
We'll find
Like in
out
the
on the show. But also,
okay.
for those that want to know, look up some of the set photos. She has an adorable dog that's going to be part of the show too, and that's always a win. Cute dogs will always get you somewhere. I'm just looking forward to this because I don't know. I think they're clearly going in a new Young Avengers direction with her potentially Morgan or Iron Lad. I think there's some interesting potential there. Plus, Michael, do you know how many times the word Hawkeye has been said in the MCU so far?
None, or maybe no.
As far as I know, once.
Once was that in Thor?
Nope. Nope.
That,
The only time we've heard it, off the top of my head, the only time he's ever said it was right before his family got snapped and he's teaching his daughter how to shoot the arrow. He says, "Good shot, Hawkeye." That is the only time we've heard Hawkeye. We got close in the first Avengers movie when Selvig says, "Oh, the hawk, he's up in his nest."
it's in his nest. Okay.
They've almost never, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but they've never actually called Clint Barton Hawkeye. They always just call him Clint. So maybe, just maybe, they're saving the proper name of Hawkeye for Hailee Steinfeld's character. Just like how we've never actually seen Wanda Maximoff be called Scarlet Witch yet. Maybe they're saving that for the WandaVision series when she officially earns that title. Just the thought.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, if you are, I mean, yeah, you may be corrected in the comments, but even if not, that is something that talk about playing the long game. Here, it actually just continues to, unravel the genius mind of Kevin Feige and how he's interwoven these stories. I mean, and these are decades long, and saying we're going to set this up and we're going to do it, and to have the financial backing and the trust of the people over him to do it. I mean, it's a magnificent undertaking to see that type of trust displayed. I'm a little nervous, I will say, for these series. I will say I'm not as hyped as I was for, say, like The Mandalorian. Not because it's any lack of interest in like the actual universes, but it's just I don't know what they're going for yet. I think Star Wars we had this like hope of like please go there, and then they gave us that. Here I'm not entirely sure. What are the first, and for those who might not track as much as you do, what is the first shows and when are they coming out in 2021?
The first Disney Plus series is WandaVision. That'll drop January 15th. And I imagine, they haven't outright stated it, I don't think, but I'd imagine it'll be like The Mandalorian of new episodes every week. And then after that, we have Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I believe has wrapped filming, and we're starting to get some promo material for that. And then this, because Hawkeye is currently filming right now in New York. And then we should be getting Miss Marvel, I believe, after that. Miss Marvel, and then maybe She-Hulk, or maybe Moon Knight, because, as we can transition into our next topic very smoothly after this, Moon Knight stars Oscar Isaac, but Oscar Isaac is also busy being the new Snake Plissken in a Metal Gear Solid movie. So, I'll be the first to admit, I know next to nothing about Metal Gear Solid. Is not a game that I ever played. I don't care though, because I love Oscar Isaac so much. You could tell me that there's a movie coming out starring Oscar Isaac sitting down in a chair just staring at you for 2 hours while he reads the phone book, and I will be there opening weekend. That man is fantastic in everything. If you've only seen him in Star Wars, do yourself a favor and check out his other stuff, because he's outstanding. Ex Machina, I don't know if you've seen that one or not. Michael, that seems up your alley.
I have seen, I've seen the parts. I've seen not the entire film, but I've seen the parts that are not explicit. Let's put it that way.
But anything with Oscar Isaac, I am there in a heartbeat. And also, looking at this little nice little graphic that I put up there.
That's really good, man. I thought
Thanks, man.
That's pretty impressive.
Doesn't that get you hyped, man?
It does. I mean, as somebody who enjoys this video games from now and then, I've actually never played Metal Gear Solid. I'm a huge stealth game person, but I had my niches growing up. I had to pick them. I didn't have a whole lot of money or access to other certain consoles, so I didn't have the privilege of it. And so now it's Metal Gear Solid, I think 5 came out in like 2014, so it's been a while. But this is amazing. Like, this is a video game movie that you actually can have faith in. And so I can't wait. Like, he looks the part, he can act the part, and I could not agree more with you. Like, the fact that he's such a good actor, he's so charismatic, and even in that movie with him and Ben Affleck that came out on Netflix,
Triple Frontier.
What was that called?
Triple Frontier.
Yeah, which was not that great. He was still one of the best parts in it, and that it speaks to him having this screen presence, that X factor, if you will.
Okay, so also, quick note, as I'm going to correct myself, as I was wrong about something. I said Snake Plissken. Snake Plissken is the Kurt Russell character in Escape from New York that also happens to have an eye patch and a beard. This is Solid Snake. There's a difference, which I'm just now realizing how similar those characters are. But also,
conspiracy theory.
But also, I forgot to mention, this movie's going to be directed by Kong Skull Island's Jordan Vogt Roberts, which I'm on board for because Kong Skull Island is actually, I think, the best of the MonsterVerse movies that we've gotten so far of Godzilla, Kong, and King of the Monsters. I really liked Kong, and that movie single-handedly makes me want to root for Kong in this upcoming movie, which we'll be talking about later. Oh boy. I trust him because he's been so vocal about wanting to make this movie for so long because he's such a big Metal Gear Solid fan, which doesn't guarantee you a good movie. The guy that made the Dungeons and Dragons movie loved the source material. Didn't know how to make a movie though. I think there's much fun to be had here. I know some people have talked about please have him hide in a cardboard box at one point. I'd be okay with that. I really do think we're starting to reach a turning point with video game adaptations that people are going, oh, we can make these good. While it was my favorite, Detective Pikachu was a lot better than it had any right to be. The most recent Tomb Raider was fine. I think this will be good. HBO is doing that Last of Us series. Mark my words, Uncharted will be a lot better than you are giving it credit for, and Tom Holland will be awesome. And I think this is no different. I think it's someone that's clearly passionate about the franchise and wants to do it as best as he can. And also, Oscar Isaac is another one, like Hailee Steinfeld. Yes, he's been a bit hit or miss in the movies that he's in, but I've yet to see him be bad in anything. He's always bringing 110% in no matter what he's in. He was in Sucker Punch, and he was still good in that movie, and that movie's trash.
Yeah, that's he was in Sucker Punch?
Yep. He looked like Gomez Addams from Addams Family.
Yeah, I mean, video game movies are having more potential because I think you're seeing fantastic storytelling now finally being noticed. And this gives me hope. I'm not saying I'm not that I would ever hold out hope for a Mass Effect movie, but maybe in 60 years they'll have made something.
I said it last week, and I'll say it again. No, I said it 2 weeks ago in the last episode. I'll say it again now. Mass Effect would not work as a movie. I think it would be better as a series.
Yeah, TV series.
Maybe like an Amazon series, because they're shelling out all kinds of money nowadays for big projects. But I'm not going to lie. This next topic makes me very excited, and it's probably my favorite thing that we're going to talk about today, and that's saying something in an episode that we have Spider-Man news. So what just dropped not too long ago and seems to go under a lot of people's radar because it's not necessarily a character or a franchise that a lot of people have a love or affection for currently, but I think that's about to change. We are getting a Van Helsing reboot from the director of a criminally underrated movie from 2018 or 2019, I believe, called Overlord, which basically, if any of y'all ever played the Wolfenstein games where you just shoot evil Nazis, it's kind of like a live-action version of that. It's a lot of fun. I am so on board with this. I have been clamoring for a Van Helsing movie forever. When Josh and I did our episodes of remakes we actually want to see, Van Helsing was very, very high on my list because I've seen the Hugh Jackman movie. It made me very, very sad because it's a layup in terms of a premise. You have a dude that hunts the world's most famous monsters, and you Resident Evil'd it, or Underworld Awakenings, or whatever the crap those movies are called. You just botched it. You blew it. Also, just everyone in that movie is entirely miscast and bored as albeit. But Van Helsing as a character, there's a lot of interesting routes you can go with it. In the original version, he's kind of an old man. It's not that interesting. But as a foil for, most notably, Dracula, there's a lot of interesting stories. And I don't think Van Helsing was completely off base in that he hunts other creatures besides Dracula. I think, believe it or not, one of the best current versions of Van Helsing requires a quick spoiler alert. So spoiler alert, for the Netflix series Dracula. That's kind of like by the same guys that did Sherlock. So this came out a year or two ago. And you meet a nun who is at her monastery or whatever, and Jonathan Harker from the Dracula story comes to her monastery. He looks all terrible. And then Dracula eventually comes looking for Jonathan Harker, and he's at the gates. And we've been really attached to this nun for a while. And she just is BA, doesn't back down to anything, doesn't believe it's Dracula whatsoever. So she starts walking away from him, and one of the best reveals ever, Dracula just screams, "Agatha Van Helsing, I know who you are." Because it was just like it's what the MJ reveal in Spider-Man should have been. They got me to care about the character and then revealed who it was, but it was still in line with who the character was. Not like the MJ thing of, you did this reveal, but the character that you've introduced us to, I like her, but doesn't feel like the versions that I know in the past. That Van Helsing still felt like classic Van Helsing to me, of going toe-to-toe with evil and not blinking. There's so many interesting and fun possibilities for this. Plus, guys, if you haven't seen it, it is super violent, but Overlord is so much fun. And that kind of frenetic energy mixed with Van Helsing is what the first Van Helsing should have been. But I'm worried, though, that the stank of the Hugh Jackman one still will linger on this project for a while. Because, unfortunately, when people hear Van Helsing, they don't think the man that goes toe-to-toe with Dracula and other monsters. They think, oh, that bad Hugh Jackman movie? So, maybe this is the movie's redemption. But, I know you're not as emotionally involved or attached to this, Michael, but you see a Van Helsing reboot is coming. Thoughts?
I am interpreting it exactly how you're saying, that I'm like, oh, good, a chance to make a good Van Helsing movie, unlike that really bad Hugh Jackman one. Because I couldn't even get through that when I was younger. I mean, even like as a 6th grader, 12 years old, it just like stupid action. I went, I can't even stand this. This is really boring. So yeah, you're 100% right. I think it's cool. Honestly, like the Monsterverse, or at least what they're trying to do with it or not trying to do. I mean, I'm a sucker even for what Tom Cruise's The Mummy was. Okay, I know it was awful, but like I like the idea of what they're doing. I'm not saying I like the content, but I like the idea of taking this universe and putting effort into it. I'm not saying they put the best effort into it.
They put no effort into that.
It. I understand, but again, the concept of it, like, oh, hey, look at a Mummy reboot because they want it to cross over here. Like, I think that's cool. So I'm looking forward to it.
I've got nothing but bad memories associated with The Mummy. I was working at Universal at the time, at the Mummy ride itself, and so they had like a big old plaster of the Mummy, like a big huge, as you're exiting the ride, and I worked at the ride photos, and everybody would come up, we haven't seen this movie, should we see it? I would tell guests to their face, do not watch this movie. Or people would be like, is this related to the Brendan Fraser one at all? I'm like, no, that one's fun and good. Well, the first one is at least. And I had some guests that saw it. And I was like, oh, so you saw The Mummy? They're like, yeah. And every single one of them said it exactly like that, like regretting the life choice that led them to see the Tom Cruise Mummy movie.
They spent a lot of money on that film, too. Do we have any idea how much they lost?
A lot. And now the Dark Universe is a joke, because remember before it came out, they're like, here's Johnny Depp, and he'll be playing the Invisible Man. Here's Javier Bardem, and he'll be playing Frankenstein. And here's Russell Crowe, he'll be playing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And they had like that picture that of all of them that was clearly not taken together, that they just photoshopped together. But I think this is on the right track. Universal is like rebooting all their classic monsters, but seemingly doing it right this time by not making them connected, because it's me. I'm always fascinated by this stuff. Every couple of years, Universal tries to reboot their classic Universal monsters with whatever current trend is going on. When they did it before with Van Helsing, it was coming off the heels of The Mummy, directed by the same guy, Steven Soderbergh. And they were trying to make it like a big budget action movie, and it feels very early 2000s. It feels like The Mummy because it's by the same guy, except a lot less fun. Like the charm, because admittedly, the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie is not a great movie. It's cheesy fun, though, and it is aware of that. I will say, though, Steven Soderbergh was clearly a fan. Like, there's some nuggets in that original Van Helsing movie that you're like, okay, you have done your homework. You're passionate about this. Like, the opening in black and white and everything else. There's interesting concepts in that movie. It was just so poorly executed. So I'm looking forward to it being done correctly. Van Helsing is one of my favorite horror characters just because I like the good guys, and he is like the stereotypical, before Laurie Strode, before there was Sidney Prescott and any of those other horror icons, Van Helsing was the real OG. You don't mess with the original. You don't mess with the classics. So I'm looking forward for the opportunity to get it done right this time. Maybe do more of a suspense and actual horror aspect. Doesn't have to be action-packed. Just make it scary. Make it different. Make it Van Helsing. That's your slogan right there. You're welcome, Universal.
Now, but I guess before, real quick, now, if they're not going to be connected, then is he going to hunt monsters, do you think, that would actually have their reboots only a little bit later? Would that confuse him if, like, he was to hunt down Dracula and kill Dracula? Just humor me for a second in that movie, but then a Dracula movie comes out and you're like, what? Is he dead or not dead? Like, so who is he gonna fight if they're not going to be a connected universe?
I don't think they have to be connected. They'd just be like, here's your monster for this movie. You're going after Dracula. And that's it. Like a Dracula that's completely separate, because we've had a Dracula every couple of years. We don't mistake them for existing in the same universe. We know that the Gary Oldman one is not in the same universe as the Luke Evans Dracula Untold. Dracula is Dracula. I think audiences are smart enough to go, okay, he's hunting Dracula. You don't think of a specific Dracula existing in a cinematic universe. So I don't think there'll be a whole lot of confusion there.
I guess I'm just confused because I didn't know that those other Dracula movies existed. So see, like, the filmmakers want somebody like me to come and see them in order for them to make more money. And it would confuse me if he was to kill Dracula in a movie and then a Dracula movie were to come out. Because, again, I think the general public is predispositioned to believe in, like, a connected universe, or we like to see that because of how successful Marvel has been. Like, wow. It's almost like and I know that's our fault, but it's like we already have that preconceived expectation.
We do now. Well,
right.
Well, Van Helsing hunts down big, scary monsters. There's some other big, scary monster that we can talk about this week. Admittedly, he's not that scary, but for those that don't know, we are getting a live-action Clifford, the Big Red Dog movie. I feel like it's been in development forever. I feel like I've heard about this movie for a very, very long time now. And we got our first look at it. And I'll give you this movie. He's clearly a red dog. But something about it. Like, it doesn't look awful, but it looks like you dipped some poor dog in red paint and went, okay, we're done, right? Like, something about it, I can't put my finger on it, but something about it just is off. Like, that's the word I'm going with, just off. I don't know how else to describe it. It doesn't look like Clifford to me. It just goes, oh, that's a cute little doggo that got caught running around in the red paint for a little bit. Either that or the blood of his enemies.
Well, the fact that the graphic looks like it was put together in Microsoft Paint in Windows 98.
Hey, that was not me. That was not me.
No. I know. Sorry, excuse me. It has trademark by it. That's the actual artwork from the studio, not you. Sorry,
Well, the
make that
Clifford
clarification.
the Clifford the logo I slapped in there, but the pictures of the dogs next to each other, that is
Oh,
from the studio.
that's what it. Yes, I guess I'm not doing this justice. My apologies. The thing looks fake. And of course, that's the thing is that the four dogs there are real. The red pup is a CGI pup. It's not a real dog. They did not. I mean, all they could have done is taken these pictures, photoshopped them, had an actual. This looks like a golden retriever puppy, put it in red paint, and actually had him, just sit down for a second. But they chose to CGI him for that 20-second spot. It's a CGI dog, okay? And you're putting him next to real dogs, and you can tell. So this is like, oh crap, this is gonna look awful. Like it looks bad in the marketing, and for like a 5 or 6 seconds clip, I'm like, wow, that's a CGI dog. So first off, no one asked for this movie. I have fond memories of Clifford. I used to watch him along with the Dragon Tales, along with Zaboomafoo, WKR before school. Okay, so yes. Oh my gosh, it brings back memories. Don't ruin this. I will not see this movie. I discourage everyone from going to see this movie. This is not scary. You're right. This is not scary, Nate. This is terrifying.
Like,
that's all I have to say.
If you gave me like a checklist of Clifford the Big Red Dog, okay, check. It is red. Check. I'm assuming it's big. In contrast to the other dogs, it's big-ish. And check. That does look like a dog. It's better than whatever the Sonic design originally was. So like, you've cleared that very small hurdle there. But it's just something about it just is off. But also, I'm familiar with Clifford. I won't say he's my favorite, just because even as a kid, the more I thought about him, the more it just doesn't really make sense. Because he grows to the size he is because Emily Elizabeth loves him so much. So kids, if your dog isn't big, it's because you don't love him enough. And you're stunting his developmental growth. That's the tale that I got as a kid of like, so dogs are the size that they are depending on how much love they receive from their owners. That's horrible. But also, the thing is, I don't really know what the story of a Clifford movie would be. I'm very worried that the story for this will be Emily Elizabeth has this gigantic dog. And we're very worried that it's going to be the government finds out that she's got this big dog and they need to know why it's so big. And they're going to be chased by the government.
It's going to be a superhero movie.
I'm worried it will be. And
that's what I want, because it's ridiculous. Like, let's be ridiculous. Let's make it like Bolt, okay? But it's Clifford. Like please, like that would be an amazing movie to me, because I would fall asleep in the first minute if this is like I just have a big red dog and that's just what I am and that's what I have. No, let's let the government come after. Let's make it ridiculous. Come on. Then I might be interested in seeing it, but not off this. You know what this looks like? This has the same feel as that Tim Allen movie where he turned into a dog.
The Shaggy Dog.
Yes, it has that same, because like the way this little teaser way it's going for, it's kind of like that bottom of the barrel. Like I have 8 kids all under the age of 6 and I need them to go see a movie. That's how the trailer came across for me. Like it's a hard skip.
No, see, to me, looking at this picture, looking at the graphic, if I just like move my hand over this, it's like a PetSmart Black Friday poster. Like, no matter the size, big or small, we can feed your pet for years to come. Like, tell me that doesn't just look like a PetSmart ad or like the banner at Walmart where you can get the pet food. Like, that doesn't look like a movie poster. It just looks bad and lazy.
It looks... Well, I think this is more sad than anything, because this means that I could have gone into graphic design and made much more money than what I'm doing right now. And I've missed my third calling in life.
Oh, man. Well, this week's episode is sponsored by HBO Max, because they're going to buy up everything else, why don't they? If you would like to contribute to the downfall of the cinematic experience, buy HBO Max. I've already been suckered in. Why don't you, too?
Oh, Come on. No, it's not going to be like that.
You say. So. This was originally going to be just a news topic that we were going to talk about for a little bit. Probably just as much as we talked about the Spider-Man thing today. But no. As the days have progressed, more and more and more crap has just been added to the pile. I need that Jeff Goldblum gif. That's a big pile of crap. Because that's what this is becoming. So, for those that don't know, HBO Max just went from that annoying little brother of streaming services to the freaking Hulk that punches through drywall. I'm scared of HBO Max now. So what they have done is all Warner Brothers movies, because HBO, Warner Brothers are all owned by AT&T, all Warner Brothers movies for 2021 will be released on HBO Max and in theaters on the same day. So why go down the street to your local movie theater when you can just go to your living room and pop on whatever the big movies are coming out that week for no additional cost? Looking at you, Disney Plus with Mulan. Disney Plus now has his tail between its legs going, oh, we feel called out here. But there's a lot to dissect here. But first and foremost, they do this without telling any of the directors, filmmakers, producers, or smaller studios that they work with making these movies. So one of the movies coming out this year, Godzilla vs. Kong, was mostly financed by production company Legendary, as was, I believe, Dune. Yeah, Warner Brothers didn't tell Legendary that they were making these moves. They didn't tell director James Gunn, who's doing The Suicide Squad, that is coming out next year now on HBO Max. They didn't tell Denis Villeneuve, who's doing Dune, that they were doing this. Oh, boy. This is a whole bunch of can of worms. Where do we even start with this, Michael?
This is a great question. So this is we talked about atom bomb earlier. Well, let's talk about like an H bomb now. Bigger size and scale and devastation here. I'm gonna first and say this. I still don't believe this is the end of movie theaters. I know that it's not technically the end of movie theaters, but I don't think that this is the start. I know that there's been a lot of speculation that because of the pandemic, that this is accelerated plans, and this was maybe 4 or 5, even 6 years by 2030, maybe a full transition away from movie theaters, and that I absolutely believe, because I just want to speak for the people that for these films that turn a profit, you're still speaking to the quote unquote average American, and the average American still doesn't have the infrastructure or the means to stream and then pay extra money, as a premium for that experience. And if you were to give the average American a choice between what they have now and what they could go out in a theater, I think the vast majority of people will still choose a theater.
No.
And I think they will. I'm gonna die on that. I think it's gonna be supported by the numbers, because I think people like the movie theater. Now you disagree, but let me just have my piece here, okay? So given that, I think this will be a temporary reprieve because of the health concerns that people have, but I do not think it's a long-term solution, and I will say it's because of the means of average people. Now, I have to ask you, what I just said will go completely out the window if you answer this next question that I have for you in a certain way, and that is, what is the theater ticket price going to be versus the day one availability stream?
What do you mean in regards to that? Like, what's the ticket price going to be to see the movie in theaters?
No, like this is not. They're not. So they released it for what? The idea is it's going to be available for a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a month and then it goes away. But aren't you paying not just to have HBO Max, but aren't you paying to actually see it?
No.
On top of that?
No. If you have HBO Max, you can see the movie for no extra charge. You pay your $15 a month for HBO Max, and movies come in just like they would for new Netflix or Disney movies. That's it. They're completely included with the price of HBO Max. There's no additional cost whatsoever to watch these. So, say the Suicide Squad, when it comes out in August, you can either pay $15 to see it in your theater, or it's already included in your HBO Max and you can watch it at home in 4K HDR, because they've made it clear that all these movies, when they are available at launch, will be available in premium formats like HDR, 4K, Dolby Atmos, which, depending on your theater, you're going to have more enjoyable experience watching it at home because they're putting this premium format forward, depending on if your theater's up to date with technology or whatever else, which some theaters are very quickly falling behind in terms of a pleasant viewing experience.
Okay, well, that drastically changes my answer then. That was what I was afraid of. I thought they were still, going to ask for money, because I guess in that, how does that differ from the disastrous MoviePass business plan?
So this differs from MoviePass because MoviePass never owned the rights to the movies that they were pushing out, but also they tried to do underhanded dealings with the movie theaters. This is movies made by Warner Brothers going on to Warner Brothers streaming service that's also going out to theaters. Like, they're already going to theaters regardless. MoviePass was basically trying to cheat the movie theaters out of the movie theater system while more or less kind of fitting in the movie theater mold. Like, movie theater, if you looked into it, MoviePass was super sketch, and it's amazing that they lasted as long as they did. But those are movies that MoviePass doesn't own the rights to. These are movies that Warner Brothers already owns and is distributing. It's not like Warner Brothers is doing, hey, we have all these Disney movies included on HBO Max that you could see it at launch, but if this does well, rest assured this will become the new norm, not just for HBO Max, but for Black Widow. The more and more this pandemic goes on, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Black Widow goes to streaming at the rate we're going. If other Disney movies go day and day on both streaming on their platforms and in theaters. Yeah, there's no additional cost whatsoever. It's premium formats. There's going to be 17 total movies. So let's look at, I have it up on my tablet here. Let's look up some of the biggest movies that you can either see in theaters, or on the exact same day that they come out, you could watch them at home. Movies like The Matrix 4, The Suicide Squad, Dune, Godzilla vs. Kong, the new Space Jam, the new Tom and Jerry movie, Mortal Kombat, the next Conjuring, Lin-Manuel Miranda's next musical, In the Heights, James Wan's next horror movie, Malignant, King Richard. All these major movies that are supposed to be big box office movies are instead going to streaming. I think the big difference and what's making so many people mad is they're moving their entire slate. If you said one or two of these movies, maybe like Mortal Kombat and Tom and Jerry, are going straight to HBO Max the same day they're going in theaters, I think there'd be some uproar, but not to the level that we're seeing it. Like, these are not just major movies, all of Warner Brothers movies. This is a huge deal. Now, I think this is mainly a bad thing for movie theaters, because this is the final nail in the coffin for them. Because say you've got a family of 6, it's going to be so much cheaper to just watch this at home on your TV than pay the $10 to $15 per person to see this in a theater. On the flip side, because I want to see at least some positivity on here, say there's a movie that you're on the fence about. I'll be honest, Mortal Kombat. I am looking forward to the movie, but I'm not expecting it to be good, because it was originally supposed to come out in January this year. Plus, I just don't know if it'll be good. Or The Conjuring 3. I love the first Conjuring. The second one, I think, is way too long, and it kind of lost me. Those two types of movies, I don't know if I'd shell out the money to go see them in theaters, but if the option is available to watch them at home the same day that they come out in theaters, I'm probably going to watch them at home because it doesn't cost me anything. I can see it. If it's good, I'll go back out and see it again in theaters.
I still don't see how this works because the average movie ticket price in 2019 and 2018 was $9.91. Again, somewhere where I live, you can find them as cheap as you can find them under $5. Now, granted, you're right. It's the only thing that's better is a bigger screen. Not saying it's better quality, but if you look at the confirmed dates for next year, that's 15 films, like big films that are spaced out over the 12 months. That comes out to $149 rounding up. Versus if you were to pay $15 a month and not necessarily watch all of the films either. That's the other thing, is that you might pay $15 a month for January and February, but only watch one movie in January. Now, you could, again, cancel and re-sign up, cancel, re-sign up. You could do that. But I don't know. I mean, are people always going to do that? I mean, you're going to spend $180 in 2021 if you start right at January. And that's not even accounting, I guess, Wonder Woman. So if you want to start in December and start up now. So I still don't see how they make a lot of money. Now, we usually do when we take a blockbuster film. What is it? We take the budget, multiply it by 2 times normally in order to turn a profit. What the movie theaters, like box office return, has to be for a profit to come back net positive. So my question is, if you now have the distribution rights, what changes? Is it now only like 1.75 adder, or is it a 2 times multiplier? Because like what now, because they own it, how much? What like they don't have to make now as much more money in order to gain a profit, right? That's my question. Or maybe they do. I just don't see how that's a financially beneficial thing, because you have multiple people in a household. You can. I mean, I know somebody personally who has 8 people in his household. Movie theaters love it when he goes to a movie theater, and they don't have the capability of streaming. So those people have to go over to another person's house, and now you have one household with like 15, maybe like 14 people watching the movie, but that one billing was only for $14.99 instead of all 14 of those people going out to a movie theater. Now, granted, they still have to pay for the ticket, and then, they're paying, popcorn, pop, all that stuff. So I don't know how the math long-term works out. I still am lost here.
Long-term, well, we'll get to long-term in a second. Short-term, I bet almost all of these movies are losses in their book. Like, I'd be amazed if any of these movies reach $200 million, just because it's a convenience factor. People would much rather... We are, as much as you want to think otherwise, we are in the minority when it comes to the movie theater going experience. If you look to a lot of people, they would much rather watch something at home nowadays, which is unfortunate. And I don't think that's COVID related. I think we were heading that way with streaming. People just want the convenience factor. And for a lot of people, their setup at home might be better than their local theater, which is a shame because some theaters have just been behind the curve. AMC was doing a good job of renovating, and that's why they're in such deep financial trouble, which we'll talk about AMC in a little bit here. But in the short term, these movies will lose money for the studio, obviously. But you forget HBO and Warner Brothers is owned by AT&T, who is literally made of money. AT&T, I think, will be okay with losing money in the short term if it means gaining money in the long term. And the long term is streaming is the future. Disney learned that quick, and that's why they put so much time and energy into Disney Plus, and why they're continuing to do that. And Disney Plus has 73 million subscribers. When that number came out, that Disney Plus has 73 million subscribers, that scared the ever-living crap out of HBO Max, because they're going, we are nowhere near that. Well, first of all, get your stuff on Roku and Fire TV, and then maybe you'd have more subscribers, because you're alienating about 40% of your audience, idiots. But also, guess what, guys? Since they're on Roku, Peacock has more subscribers than HBO Max right now. I think that genuinely spooked HBO Max, because they know this streaming service is their future, and they need their future to look a lot brighter than it is, a lot faster, because right now they're in fourth place in a 3-person race, to put it in short term, because they're so far behind. They stumbled out of the gate with this launch. I've had HBO Max since day one, and I I like it primarily because I never had HBO, so there's a lot of good content that I'm catching up on, and I like Warner Brothers library, and I believe in the future of it. But I'm not blind. They had a terrible launch, and it was all self-inflicted. They didn't launch with Roku or Amazon or 4K support, anything. But I think them seeing their numbers of how truly far behind they are in the streaming wars right now, when they should have come out the gate blazing because of all the content that they already own, like DC, like Warner Bros., like Looney Tunes, Cartoon Network, TNT, all that stuff. I think this is a very reactionary, knee-jerk reaction of, oh crap, we need to find 30 million subscribers as quick as humanly possible. Let's just dump every movie, whether that hurts us in the long term or not. It's like they're thirsty, so they drink poison, but they make everybody else around them drink the poison too, because this affects HBO Max. But it also affects everyone else. Because you tell me that this doesn't just light a fire underneath Disney Plus or Peacock or Netflix of going, now you guys need to figure out the next thing that makes you special compared to everyone else. Like, when this happened, everyone pointed at Disney and laughed, going, hey, remember when you guys tried to charge us $30 for Mulan? Yeah, these guys are going to give us movies for free. So there's always going to be that, what is the hook for people? And they're always going to try and one-up each other. This is a big hook. It is a right hook, if you will, to the movie theaters. Because movie theaters are already on their dying breath. The stock market plunged on movie theaters when this news hit, because, yeah, this is killer for them. And the head of AT&T was just like, this is a one-year solution. We're just doing this for 2021. Bull crap. This is your future.
Unless it's just so poorly received. I mean, there is a point at which it could be so poorly received. You're like, yeah, we are trying to do this ahead of our time. And that's the thing, is that Disney, Disney's a lot like Apple, where they are not going to try to trailblaze. They will let other people make those mistakes and see if they can, to see if, like, hey, is it a fertile ground or is the soil all dried up, to use a metaphor? And if there is, they just come in. I mean, if the soil is going to produce a crop, Apple and like Disney will come in and they just do it better than everybody else. And so I don't, like, HBO Max is doing this out of desperation. Their motive isn't pure. Like, they're doing this for the sake of, I think, being first. And to be honest with you, not a lot of those films, like you had just mentioned, even like Mortal Kombat, I'm not going to go see anyway. I'm not going to sign up for HBO Max to see all those films. I was going to go see, I was going to see, Wonder Woman. I was going to see Kong versus Godzilla, but the fact that I physically can't right now because of my state and its procedures, that unfortunately that's the only option. I'm glad I have that option. But I don't know, man. I'm still not sold that this is the short term. I think movie theaters are going to be okay, but I think what this will do is it's going to force movie theaters that once they actually get some capital again to really take a look at how they do things. Because if there's anything that we talk about in America, it's very rare to see a full industry die. And we've seen innovation. I'm not saying that like old technology fades out, but when it comes to like social interactions, social gatherings, this is so unique that I don't think it just goes away within 1 year. It might accelerate it, sure, but man, I don't. Maybe that's just optimism holding on. But I saw this news. I'm like, yeah, it's big news, but I still don't think this is the death to movie theaters. I refuse to believe it. That it's that sucker punch blow. I have a different gut reaction to it, though, Nate. I know we disagree, but it's my story. I'm sticking to it for now.
I think you believe that because you want to believe that. Like, you want...
I know. I mean, I know I'm biased. Of course I'm biased.
Like, I want the theaters to survive as well. But I know I'm in a minority when it comes to actually going to the theater anymore. I believe that Avengers Endgame will be the final big blockbuster that we see, because after that it'll all be at home viewing. I think this will go over extremely well with consumers, and that's about it. Because as we talked about at the beginning, we'll dive into more now. Consumers will like this option, but it has pissed off everybody else. Christopher Nolan, who released his movie theatrically this year called Tenet. It was supposed to be the savior of the box office, and it came off not as much as that. And he's getting eaten alive by people on social media, but I don't think he's wrong in this aspect of, he basically called them out of, people went to bed, I think his exact verbiage was, people went to bed believing they worked for the best movie studio in the world, and they woke up realizing that they now work for the worst streaming company. And I'm going, Jesus! What are your real thoughts there, Nolan? Nolan is a cinematic purist. He wants everything to be seen in theaters, basically, in the best possible way. But, like I said earlier, he did not know this movie was coming. James Gunn, who did The Suicide Squad. James Gunn, who, when he was released from Disney, or fired for BS reasons, he could have went anywhere. He went to Warner Brothers with The Suicide Squad. Now I bet he's second-guessing that. Somebody that's suspiciously quiet about this. Maybe because we haven't heard anything from him since Rise of Skywalker, but somebody that I'm very curious about his thoughts about all this, because he's supposedly to be the face of it going forward, is J.J. Abrams. No one's talked about Abrams in months. But guys, remember about a year and a half ago, pre-pandemic, I know it's so long ago, back in July, he signed that $500 million contract for exclusivity with Warner Brothers. That's across both streaming and in theaters. So does that move him solely to like a streaming aspect? No one's talked about that in a while, and I think he's going to be a very, very big factor to this going forward. This is going to suck to say out loud, but do not be surprised if in the next year or two, Man of Steel 2 exclusively on HBO Max, just like the Snyder Cut is. I would not be surprised if Warner Brothers, they know they're in the crap right now with their creators, and there's a potential boycott coming because they didn't let anybody know. I wouldn't be surprised if HBO Max just doubles down on this. They're like, well, we're in the crap already. Let's just push all of our stuff in. Push all the chips into this. There's a boycott coming also, supposedly. Directors, writers, everybody going, no, we signed up for our movies to come out theatrically, because when you release a movie in theaters, you get a certain bonus if it's in your contract of like, if the movie makes this much money, you get this much money in return. And now that's not going to happen with some of these movies. Like Wonder Woman, not part of the 2021 release, so let's go with something else. The Suicide Squad. Say the Suicide Squad would have made $800 million theatrically. There's not a chance it's making $100 million now. It'll be a miracle if it makes 200. That's a miracle, I think, now. So any capital James Gunn could have made on that, like any special bonuses, that's got to be renegotiated, or it's completely out the window. And so AT&T's either going to eat these bonuses, or they're going to have a lot of legal trouble of getting them out of these situations. So there's, like, it's not just this is, in my eyes and a lot of other people's eyes, optimistic Michael over here, which is a good thing. This is the death of the movie theaters. But it's not just that. HBO Max just really stepped in it big time. And I think they knew that there's going to be some blowback. But this is more blowback than I think anybody could have expected. And just sheer stupidity on their part.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it changes. I mean, as I'm testing the water, I don't know, man. This is, I mean, for the movies that were made during the pandemic, they're just looking at the charts saying there's no way we make money on these anyway. But maybe they can garner some support in like back channels of saying, like, you know, based on movie theater outcasts, like the movie theaters might not recover for 2 years, like the airline industry, right? How people have forecasted that it's going to take 3 full years for the airlines to recoup all of their losses this year. And so you won't see like the numbers and the confidence of consumers in travel. Maybe that's what they're looking at. So this is a temporary solution for the films that had already gone into production and that were already made on these massive budgets, so the money was already spent. So they're like, well, how can we get these to consumers the fastest? So maybe that's the sacrificial lamb that they've done. They've just maybe have been willing to be more honest with that, and say, yeah, we're gonna, without saying it. I mean, they're saying it without saying, like, yeah, we know this money, these movies are not going to make any money, so we're just going to release them direct to customers and try to capitalize as much as we can, because movie theaters aren't coming back because of public skepticism and lack of confidence and safety and health. So, I mean, that's the thing too. Let's say that everything was gone. The pandemic was over. It never happened, and every economy and every store, all the restaurants, bars, you name it, were all open tomorrow. Would you think if Wonder Woman came out tomorrow as well, it says, hey, everyone's open, come see us, do you think there'd be this massive, exodus from our homes to go see something like that? I doubt it, because, I mean, I don't know.
If this was a few months ago, I would have said yes, people would have gone back to the theater in droves, because I was saying for months and months, whatever the first movie is to open up when movie theaters are open again is the luckiest movie in the world, because it's going to make a lot of box office. That was not the case. I think even if we were 100% clean tomorrow, there's still going to be some apprehension just in general about, like, I don't know if I want to go back to the theater. But also, this started in March, so people have spent a lot of time and gotten used to the idea of watching things at home. You and I may still like to go out to the theater. I think this has trained people to get used to watching things at home, and people are starting to like to watch things at home. We live in a Netflix world where people can just binge or add to their queue or just watch things at their earliest convenience as opposed to going to a theater. You and I are the exception. We like watching things in the theater in the best possible format we can watch. A lot of people, you hear me complain about HBO Max not being in 4K. The average Joe Schmo person does not care about that. They'll be like, oh, this is in HD, that's whatever, that's fine. It's a movie I'm excited to see. I don't think the general population cares about seeing a movie in theaters anymore. I don't think they want theaters to go away. I think they want that choice to be available to them. But I think the public perception is that they want to be able to watch things at home. That's not how I want things to be, but not everything is catered to me, and that's perfectly good. That's what makes the world the way it is, of what pleases the most amount of people, not just a specific niche. I don't think movie theaters ever fully died. They might go the way of the drive-in, of they exist, but a very special select group of people go out and see them. I think in the next couple of years, we will see a dramatic reduction in the theaters, in the number of theaters out there, but theaters will still be around, but the dominant way of watching things will be at home on your TV, not in the theater anymore. And that sucks, but some of these, like, I'll still see in the theater because that's the way to go. I am looking forward to Godzilla vs. Kong. There's not a chance in heck that I'm watching this at home. That needs to be seen on the biggest possible screen. And I get why Legendary would be mad. One, they didn't know, but two, you make a movie called Godzilla vs. Kong, that is not meant to be seen on your 55 to 60-inch TV, no matter what your surround system is. Chance. That's supposed to be seen on IMAX, the biggest screens possible. That's supposed to be shake it, you feel it in every bone in your body that Kong is going to kill Godzilla. That's my prediction. But
buddy, I couldn't agree more. And I don't know, man, this just doesn't, none of it feels right. None of it makes sense. And when something doesn't make sense, you have to ask, well, in what context would it make sense? And I guess it's maybe this admittance that, that these films, are going to get a loss. They just need to kind of minimize the loss. But for the movie theaters themselves, I guess that'd be an interesting question for me to post tomorrow is which one would you prefer, streaming or theaters? And
I think the results may surprise you. I really do.
Yeah, but very, very well. They very well might. And I guess a question for HBO Max: when is 4K support coming? Is it coming like the day that they released Wonder Woman?
Well, Well, here's the thing. They've said it's coming, and they said Wonder Woman will be available in 4K, which I'm just going, okay, what formats? Because again, you have it on PlayStation, but the only PlayStations that play 4K is PlayStation Pro. You don't have HBO Max for some reason on PS5 for those lucky people that have PS5s, which that's just weird to me.
That's very strange. Yeah, you're right.
They don't have it on Roku at all, but I'm imagining they'll have it on Roku by Christmas for the Wonder Woman release. You can have it on Cast, but again, you can cast HBO Max, but again, you would need the proper 4K support. Like you would need a Chromecast Ultra, I believe, is what casts at 4K, or a 4K Fire Stick. So you would need the proper support. So yes, they can say you can watch Wonder Woman 4K or any of these new releases, but until they have a readily standard 4K format, the audience that can actually watch this in 4K is very, very limited. So I don't fully understand that, but cool. You should have had 4K at launch, basically, because you have so many of your titles. Every DC movie that's come out in the past 10 to 15 years is in 4K. So I don't get why they don't have more 4K options or 4K options, period. Disney Plus surprised people with having so much 4K content and remastered all the Star Wars movies, but didn't tell people until launch of, oh, hey, we have Star Wars in 4K just for you guys. But kind of to bring this around full circle, if this does well or does poorly, just projecting in your own mind, Michael, how do you think this will affect the other streaming services like a Netflix, like a Disney Plus, like an Amazon, like a Peacock, whatever else?
Well, I guess in the same way that the idea of like cutting the cord is a joke, because we've just traded that for just being able to maybe skip some advertisements while paying just as much of a premium, if not more, to get access to the same content.
Oh, no, not even close to the same content. Not even close. I hate that argument. I hate that cord-cutting argument because older generations are like, you're just doing what we did with cable. No, we have no commercials. We can watch thousands upon thousands of more hours of content and find specifically what we want whenever. And there's also just more content and ready to watch whenever. So it's not the same as cable, but whatever.
For me, it is. For me, it is from the budgetary standpoint. Like, I mean, yes, I'm not saying you're getting like an actual return, but you're paying more money, and so again, it's just another way of it just turns into something more. I'm not saying it doesn't get better. Of course, it got better.
So, would you rather
all of this has gotten better.
Would you rather pay $50 for cable or $50 in streaming? Yes, they're the same monetary value, but one of them you're getting significantly more quality value. So I don't mind spending money on something that is quality content, as opposed to cable. I'll watch 3 channels and have to suffer through 15 minutes of commercials for an hour programming.
Unless you just like live sports and you don't have the budget to pay, $60-$70 a month for internet that you actually didn't have to have prior, and then because you had places like Family Video, like, oh man, Family Video. I can't. The only reason why Family Video is still open in my town is because of the certain substance and medicinal purpose.
You're talking about the candy at the checkout counter, right?
That's correct. I love their Snickers. I will say that the other companies will follow suit if it succeeds, but they will come in and do it better.
Mm-hmm.
Like Apple. And I'm an Android fanatic, but I will say Apple learns. They're not trailblazers because they don't have to be. They don't have to be.
I forgot Apple even had a streaming service.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, I'm just referring to their phones, because Apple doesn't lead and innovate or in certain areas because their Android counterparts will do it. They won't do it very well. They'll get the feedback from the consumers, and then they'll say a couple of years later, Apple will quote unquote reinvent something where us Android fanboys will be like, we've had that feature for years. And then Apple fanboys will go, yeah, you did, but it's also been terrible. Look how good we've done it. And we're like, oh yeah, that's actually a good point. So you'll have Disney Plus come in. You have Disney and Disney Plus come in. They'll follow suit, but they'll do it much better because It'll be a much smoother process. They have the infrastructure. There won't be with Disney. There would never have been well, is Disney Plus available on certain things like a PS5, PS4 situation? There wouldn't have been 4K support's kind of there. That never would be Disney. It's so unprofessional. It's so scatterbrained. They will come in, follow suit, do it better, and with better content for the most part, arguably. And people will rejoice and say, "Look at Disney Plus." And so I guess that's the way of doing it. And if it bombs and is like one of the worst financial decisions we've seen in quite some time, then guess what? All these other companies will have lost nothing because they didn't do anything. They're just going to wait. They're going to wait a little bit. And I wouldn't be surprised if they wait for the vast majority of 2021, honestly, because this has been a huge public backlash, like you said, and they are going to allow, HBO Max to step on the proverbial landmine and see how big the explosion is. So
we actually might be able to see within a few days how the industry reacts to this, because so we're recording this on the 8th. On the 10th, expect a ton of Disney news, because they have a shareholders meeting, and I bet you anything they'll announce a whole bunch of projects to present to shareholders of, yes, we're in the craps right now with box office and with revenue, but look at all the things we've got coming out soon that could potentially save us money-wise, and here's some inventions that we might be considering for Disney Plus. That could just be me, but I wouldn't be surprised if Disney's already internally considering some changes to the system and ways to compete with HBO Max's move. It's a chess game. You make a move. It could be a really stupid move, but
right.
You've got to counter that move somehow. And your move could be not moving at all.
Right, exactly.
But there's going to be a move, I'm sure.
Disney's not a highly reactive. They respond, and I think anything short of them just acknowledging what they're doing and saying we constantly look for ways to innovate and connect with our consumers, and we at Disney are still striving to meet the customers' needs at the highest level. Some PR crap like that.
Well, Disney's full of PR crap.
Yeah. I'm saying like anything short of that, like anything beyond that, I would deem it as highly reactive and actually out of character. Disney is methodical. They choose their spots. They do not this is key. You're gonna have to really point to me in this since we have come of age now as millennials. You're really gonna have to point to me to give me any example where Disney has allowed other companies to dictate their behavior. I'm not talking about making dumb moves because they've just made dumb moves like, hey, look at, The Last Jedi happened and The Rise of Skywalker. They are their own company. They don't let other people dictate their strategy. And I would think if they came out and said, we're going to plan on doing this too, I would see it as a desperate attempt to grab headlines. And Disney doesn't do that. They are their own brand. They're above and more powerful than anything. They will move when they want to move on the chessboard. Other people's moves and potential cuts into the market does not intimidate them at all. So I think there's going to be different stuff to talk about. I don't think this will be a story.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think about all this? There's just a lot to break down here with this move that HBO Max has done to release all of their movies on both HBO Max and in theaters on the same day, all of their 2021 movies. Is there any movie in particular you guys are looking forward to? Maybe the Tom and Jerry movie, Mortal Kombat, The Suicide Squad, Malignant? Let us know in the comments below. We always like hearing from you guys. And as always, if you like what you hear and you want to hear more, subscribe to us on whatever audio platform you're listening to us on, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or YouTube. And if you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube at Uncharted Media. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.